You ever wondered what it takes to build a boat from scratch? You ever wondered what it would look like if some couillon who never built a boat before decided to do it in his backyard, in a tent? Well, if you answered yes to either one of those, you probably want to hang around and see how this plays out. I'm going to show you all it takes as I try and do this right. If you want to check it out, you can click the link above and it'll show you the last 2 years in about 15 minutes. This is what I like to call Big O's Backyard Boat Works. Alright, today we're going to be diving into this section here where we're going to be trying to get that deck drain ready so we can start putting this floor down. So we're going to get right after it. Alright, so I talked about it before with this, after you glass this stuff while it's still pretty green. I didn't cover this yesterday, but these are the forward sections that'll go up here, and I went ahead and glassed the bottom of them. This is just 10-ounce cloth. But you could just take, I wanted to show here, you could just take a razor blade, just a regular razor blade, and you can just trim that off nice and easy. Especially this 10-ounce one while it's still green. Yeah, I apologize for that blur on the camera. That's just something we're going to have to deal with here early on. One of the problems of only running one camera, when you get something like this that happens, you really don't have a backup. So, as you can see, that stuff cuts pretty easy with that razor knife. Alright, back in the tent. Got it all closed up this morning. Expected some rain later. As you can see, with these compartments we just finished, got the foam in there. We'll come back and we'll trim that all flush, and that'll be nice and good. We walking back here, we finished up and topped off all that foam back up in here. And here you can see we got in this back compartment and got all 4 of those middle ones done. And then we got both of these in the bilge, both of these done in the very aft of the boat. So that should be all the foam for now, unless we do some filling around the live well or something. So you've seen that process before. I'm gonna come back in here and I'm gonna cut this off, which doesn't take very long. We're gonna cut this off and get this deck ready to go down. So this is the area we're talking about where the fuel tank will go, and then we're going to put that little false wall, which is that little purple wall you can see there in the sketch in the drawing, and then that drain will be over there on the other side. So this is the area we're going to be working on. And here you can see where we've kind of laid it out. We're starting to measure. This is back, I think, in episode 53 where we were showing where that drain's going to be and where we actually drilled the hole and marked it. So that's where we're starting from. Alright, so this is one of the pieces that we just trimmed off. This goes on the forward. This is actually the bottom side of it here. You can see there's a little bitty hole here. Got it in my carpet here. So we got the hole that we drilled out. This is also some little 3/8 that we made, because I don't know if you can barely see it. There's a little red circle right here. You can see this is a 3.5 inch hole saw, and we're going to cut this whole thing here. This whole panel here is going to have a 3.5 inch hole that will actually wind up filling with thickened epoxy, and then we're going to drill that out to 3 1/8, so you have an 1/8 inch sleeve all the way around it. So that'll be the top side. So we're going to drill this whole piece out with this 3.5 inch bit. And then we're going to put this in here, and you can see that I put this on a table saw and just cut them on a 45, so that I can just take the sander and kind of soften this edge a little bit when I go to glass it. But we're going to get this set up here with the bit, and we're going to drill the bottom side out with this 3.5, and then that'll actually be the top side. And then the bottom will be like a 2.5 or a 2 3/4, and then we'll drill it out smaller than that, so it'll actually have a whole sleeve of epoxy just like we did the transom. So I'm going to show you the drawing right here. So this is a representation. So the dark wood is actually the deck, and then you'll see this is the little piece that I put underneath the bottom. And what I'm planning to do is have that hole on the bottom smaller than the hole at the top. We're going to pack all that with thickened epoxy, then we'll drill it out to the size we need. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this hole saw and just kind of mark, just kind of score it a little bit. Now I know that's where I need to put my screw holes. So my screws will go here, here, and here. So when we cut out the other side, our screws won't be inside the disc that we're going to be filling with thickened epoxy. And I'm just putting a bit in here to help to center it and hold it perfectly where I want it. And now I can come in here and just drill me a couple little pilot holes. Then whenever we're done bedding all this, we'll put a little piece of glass over this, fill all these holes with epoxy, thickened epoxy, and be good to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to screw this one down, drill the big hole from the top side, which will leave this pilot hole, and then come over here and drill this with a 2.5 inch hole, which this will be what the assembly looks like. So that'll be what the drain looks like. It'll have 2 clamps on it, so we'll have to have enough hose to come out of put that on there and then push that back down in there, and then we'll bed all this in. Hopefully it'll make sense. Yeah, let me try it here and show you. This is where that hose comes out of that barb fitting I showed earlier, and that's where that drain is going to connect to. So that's what we're trying to connect to, and that's what we're trying to figure out right now. Once again, this little hole saw kit, I got a link to it on the page where I've got all the tools and stuff that I've used. It's on there. I've been really happy with this set. It's really, really aggressive cutting. So I just want to kind of score it on this side so that whenever I come through, it'll give me a nice clean cut on this end. When this is done, the actual hole, you can see this thing is going to be a little bit smaller, so we'll have a sleeve of epoxy going all the way through there. Now we just got to make sure that that'll go in there, and then we'll control how deep we put it based on whatever we want at that point. But I'm doing all this because by the time you recess this thing down in there, I wanted to make sure that I had enough meat behind it. And this is kind of a test one because this is really going to be important in the cockpit, not so much in this forward drainage hatch, but that's what we're doing. And what you see me doing here is just taking some old scrap marine lumber that I had. This was some trim off from way at the beginning, and all I'm doing is making me some little backer blocks right there that I'll use. Just sizing that up. I'm actually come in there and put a piece of a Ziploc bag on it so that the epoxy won't stick, because I didn't have any packing tape, which works really well. So you see I got my thickened epoxy made, which is just epoxy with some Cabosil. And then I just scratched up the surface of that fiberglass because it had been cured for a while. And then you see my little piece of Ziploc, and now I'm just packing that in there. I actually decided to do it the other way, and with the other side on top. So here now you can see I just had to take my little cutoff wheel there and cut the tips of those screws off, just so it would be easier for me to get this flat and flush. So I just packed that whole thing full. And you just really want to put a lot of downward pressure on it to get all those cavities, and then I put a plastic spreader over it, just cleaned it up. And now we had to move outside, and these are all the undersides
of the main cockpit, and then the one with all the holes will be the kind of the rear deck, and we're just going towards the back, and we're just putting glass on the bottom of these. This is just some 10 ounce, and man, it is windy and still got a little blur on that camera. I apologize for that, but just you know, put the epoxy down on the wood, let the wood kind of soak it up a little bit, and then I come back and I've already kind of draped my glass over it. This 10 ounce is pretty easy, but it's a little fragile, like I said, so you kind of got to be careful with it. And the wind's blowing so much that it's blowing it up and over. You can see that. So I kind of have to work those edges a little bit. And I find that using a spreader like that little Bondo spreader or whatever with that epoxy to help spread it out, it really works really well when you're working on these big areas. So this is a tip. This is just a couple of pieces of shop vac tubing that I roll that glass up on to help move it around. It really works well. So not a whole lot of exciting stuff here. Like I said, I just drape that glass over, take my little electric shears and just trim off the edges a little bit long, and then we'll come back and cut them with a razor knife like I showed you earlier. Well, this is what it looks like in the end. You could just see, sorry about that camera being all screwed up, but you can just see I got that 10 ounce glass on here, and I'll come around with my little razor knife and trimmed it up, trimmed around all the little holes here. And once again, we're gonna put some epoxy in here, and then wherever we come through the floor, we'll put a little fillet of thickened epoxy over there. So yeah, this is just how I had to store these, and you know, you got to make use of the room you have. The old tent's about to fall apart. We're going to put another one up, hopefully the last one. But got that, you know, that's the center section of the middle, and then before long we're going to get in this next compartment here. And see, we kind of cut that foam off right there. This is the anchor locker, and we're fixing to get those. Now that we've got that hole and all that done, I'm going to show you that. All right, so here's the finished product. You can see, you saw earlier in there where I put these center lines here, and the whole purpose of doing that so that I could come back and find the center point of that hole. And I've used this, but I think this is a drill guide or something. And so you can see right here on the edges, I'm gonna try and show it. But when you put this thing down on there, you align that. You put that mark right there on that center line, and then you put this top mark right there on that center line, and then on that side, and that gets you your center. You hold this firmly down. Now we have a pilot hole, and we'll leave it like that until we get ready to glass this top and get it all faired. And we're going to keep that hole right there open and make sure that we come back and we'll drill that out, and you'll see how this comes out. But this is what that final product looks like. I'll show you. And you can kind of see there, this is what the backside looks like. And whenever we go to I'll put this glass over here, I'll feel all that little wrinkling off on that Ziploc bag. I didn't have any packing tape with me. We'll fill these holes, fill all this up with thickened epoxy, and we'll put a piece of glass over the top of that, so that'll be it.